My name is Matt, and I review retro. I now don the moniker of...
Hello, little bastards. Freddy's commandeered this program, and things are gonna get a lot more scary. I've made mincemeat out of the Defender, and you're all next on the menu. So say your prayers because...
Okay. It was really me all along, but obviously this wasn't going to fool anybody, but you can't fault the guy for trying on Halloween. Speaking of which, I want to wish a very happy Halloween to all of you lovely people. Halloween is hands down my favorite holiday. There's no better time of year to watch a horror flick, play some spooky games, or even just go out on a night walk and soak in some creepy vibes. In spite of my positive feelings towards the occasion, I wasn't sure if I wanted to do a Halloween video this year. I wasn't sure that I could outdo my Monster in My Pocket review from last year, which I still consider to be one of the best videos I've done to date. However, the request that I got in the Asterisk video shows that you guys want to get another Halloween review, and one particular game got the most requests out of them all. A Nightmare on Elm Street. My apologies, folks. There must have been a mix-up with the files. Beethoven is pretty terrifying, though. That's for sure. Perhaps a little too terrifying. Anyway, let's give this another shot. A Nightmare on Elm Street, developed by Rare, was fittingly released on October 1990. Elm Street, of course, was based on the popular slasher franchise created by Wes Craven in 1984. The plot revolves around child murderer Freddy Krueger, portrayed by Robert Englund, who seeks revenge against the parental mob who burned him alive by haunting and slaughtering their children within their dreams. Very dark and gruesome subject matter, but in spite of its R-rated sensibilities, the character became popular with the younger demographic and developed into a merchandising bonanza. As a result, this Rainbow Embossed cartridge was put out in the market to capitalize on the craze, much like Friday the 13th had the year before. How would this genre powerhouse fare in comparison? Let's take a closer look. Right off the bat from the credit screen, the mood is set by the unsettling, eerie David Wise music. A number of people have complained that Hirohiko Takayama's score on Friday the 13th failed to capture the essence of that film series, but Wise hits the nail perfectly on the head with this one. This fits A Nightmare on Elm Street to a T, and I could totally see this being used in one of the films. The logo pops up with a menacing image of Krueger. This title screen must have terrified the tykes who popped this cart into their Nintendo back in the day, similar to the knife piercing the mask in Friday the 13th. However, as fantastic as the overall quality is, a key ingredient in the serial killer stew is absent. Some critics have brought up the fact that the iconic glove is missing, and I can't argue with that. It's clear as day that it's not there, and the blades are protruding from his hand. However, I think I actually prefer this look for him. He's got a Wolverine vibe going on, but with many, many more times the homicidal rage. I think I'd rather run into the gloved Krueger in a dark alleyway than this frightening Freddy. At least then you could possibly disarm the glove and have a fighting chance, but with this bad boy, you'd be totally boned. The aforementioned finger knives and maniacal glint in his eyes give the impression that anyone who dares to hit that start button is in for one dark ride.
You better believe it, bitch. This isn't some namby-pamby twirling teacup strip. This is a screaming demon tower of terror!
Alright! Alright! You better strap in, everybody, because here we go. Pressing start puts the player on the iconic Elm Street. The tank top wearing teen who serves as our avatar encounters rats, bats, and monsters. Or as the manual prefers to call them, Night Prowler, Deathwing, and the Shambler. All of those would make excellent band names. I'm just saying. While these enemies have very little, if anything, to do with the films, they serve their purpose of building up to the main event, much like the birds and zombies did in Friday the 13th. It's all about proper pacing, people. And after all, there's a quest that has to be undertaken before the big baddie himself takes the center stage. That mission, according to the manual, is to collect all of the deceased Springwood Slasher's bones and hurl them into the high school furnace in the hopes of purging the killer's stranglehold on the children's dreams. In order to collect the bones, the teenager has to enter one of the buildings. This may seem confusing at first, and there is a degree of randomness to it, but the order is mostly set from playthrough to playthrough. To put it simply, the order of the first 3 stages often changes from session to session, but the remaining 4 always stays the same. I'm not entirely sure why the beginning segment is randomized and the conclusion path is fixed, but I'm assuming that it has to do with the fact that the junkyard, cemetery, Freddy's house, and Elm Street High are iconic settings within the series. To access the appropriate structure, hold up on the D-pad. A rectangular iris effect is used to transition to the interior of the structure, and it's now bone collecting time. Once inside, the objective is simple. Underneath the title logo is a 2-digit number. That's the amount of bones that have to be collected in the area before the entrance to the next is opened. This task is harder than it seems, since the bones are very plain looking and often blend into the background. There were countless times that I accidentally walked by a bone because it was resting on a similar colored surface. The only solution to this is to keep an extra careful watch out for bone-shaped objects and hope that the counter is emptied by the time the end is reached. After that counter reaches 0, a noise goes off and the entryway to the next section is now open. This may sound simple enough, but there are tons of flying insects and spiders waiting to ensure the poor children of Elm Street are doomed to an eternity of disturbing dreams. In the real-world portion where the game begins, the tough teenager has only his fists and wits to pummel these pesky nuisances. The punches have an incredibly minuscule range, and it's easy to take on damage and get killed when going in for the attack, but that all changes when sleep deprivation closes in. As the player progresses through the stage, the Z-meter, or sleep meter as the manual calls it, gradually dwindles down. This occurs at a steady rate no matter what speed the tasks are accomplished in. However, standing idle will make the meter decrease much faster than normal, so try to stay on the move. When the last red bar empties from the meter, the screen is enveloped in a swirling effect, signifying the character falling asleep and entering the dream world. The dream world is Kruger's playground, and all the previously encountered enemies transform into ghastly reflections of their warped creator's mind. For the most part. The dream world takes everything up to a whole new level. The difficulty increases and a lot of the enemies take more hits to destroy. However, this mode has its fair share of benefits as well. Let's take a closer look at the surroundings in the waking world. See that square item next to the pillar? That's one of the power-ups used to access the Dream Warriors. The Dream Warriors, of course, are a reference to the third and my personal favorite entry of the same name in the franchise. The pugilistic protagonist can take on 3 new forms in this environment: the Acrobat, the Necromancer, and the Shadow Warrior, each of which having unique traits. Obviously, these aren't the same powers as seen in the source material, but there are similarities. The Acrobat and Shadow Warrior could kinda be compared to Kristen's abilities, and the Necromancer is obviously modeled after Will. Poor Will. Finally gets a chance to be the powerful wizard master he'd always aspired to, and he gets gutted soon after. Will, as one spectacle's wearer to another, I salute thee. Getting back on topic, the acrobat moves quicker, flings javelins, and somersaults through the air. The necromancer has a spell attack whose range is the farthest reaching of the trio. He can also float through the air at a higher elevation than the rest of the fighters, and this comes in really handy near the conclusion. Lastly, the Shadow Warrior is the most well-rounded of the bunch. Pressing B will shoot out his shurikens, but his most deadly technique is the flying kick, performed simply by pressing A. This is the best way to clear through the tricky spots with aerial assailants, as well as being the most useful against the majority of the bosses. But more on that later. The Dream Warriors can be switched at will by pressing select in the Dream World. These superior sleep soldiers really even out the playing field between the forces of good and evil, but don't get too careless. Waiting to rain on the pumped up players' parade are the many boomboxes that show up every now and then. Touching them will instantly revert back to the baseline form by waking the teen from their not so peaceful slumber. The boomboxes replace the cups of coffee found in the real-world setting, which are used to refill the sleep meter, preventing the dream world shift. I give rare props for including this play mechanic, since the movies regularly depicted the troubled teens drinking coffee or listening to loud music to stay awake. However, since this title really shines when the dream world is entered, something the kids in the film very rarely did on purpose, it's almost as if the developers are penalizing the player for wanting to have a little fun. Buzzkill aside, whether in the real or dream world, the objective and setup always remain the same. Collect the bones, go on to the next segment. Collect the next set of bones, and repeat until it's time to face the various forms of Freddy Krueger himself. Every once in a while, even before collecting all the bones, Krueger will make an appearance in the traditional sweater and fedora look that he's known for. This is signified by the onset of the trademark nursery rhyme/jingle from the movies. Unless the bone collecting duty is completed before the jingle finishes, the Freddy's coming message flashes on the screen and Krueger will start leaping around and slashing in the same predictable pattern. It's very easy to dispatch the charred child killer in this form. Just mash the attack button and jump over him before he leaps or walk under him as he does so. A few hits will send him back where he came from, and the setting will instantly shift back to the previous location. This is more of a nuisance than anything, especially since the characters returned unguarded in the blink of an eye without any warning that baddies are waiting to harm them. As for the regular boss battles, most of them are very basic, starting with just the glove attached to a chain, and evolving along the way into the head on a chain, a bouncing free-roaming glove, a skelebat, a bedsheet ghost, and a bouncing glove bouncing head combo battle. My advice for the majority of these fights is to go with the Shadow Warrior. His jump kick is an essential tool in taking down the bouncing baddies, and the height of the kick is superbly responsive to how hard the button is pressed. In other words, don't enter the boss battles without drifting into Slumberland first. If Tank Top Tommy faces the fearsome fiends, well, it'd be like Toad getting in a scuffle with the Hulk. Definitely not a pretty sight. After the boss is defeated, a key appears and a much needed extra life is added to the stock. After this, go back to step 1 but with a different building and repeat the same steps as before. Find the right building, get all the bones, take out the boss, next building, bones, boss, etc., etc. Each new section gets harder than the preceding one, but the overall objective always remains the same. The final stage at the high school is the hardest of the bunch, and for good reason. The stages up to this point feel like practice to sharpen one's skills and get used to the abilities of the ally forms. Everything that was learned up to now is put to the test here in one long endurance run. There are tricky jumps and obstacles aplenty. However, there's no time limit, so it's best to take things slow. With all the extra pitfalls, it's easier than ever to lose lives, so make sure that your supply of lives and continues, 5 and 3 at the start respectively, is as filled as they can be for the troubles ahead. Managing to collect the last bones in one piece and dropping down to the boiler room leads to the big show, where one gets a strong sense of deja vu. No, I'm not talking about the Kemco Classic, but the return of the bosses from the earlier buildings. The Band of Misfits tactics have remained unchanged since the initial meetup, So dish out a warm helping of javelin attacks and Shadow Warrior kicks all around. Each victory is one step closer to the furnace and the final showdown. The killer's final form is the exact same one as we've seen countless times before. Seriously, this is it. It's no harder than the regular Freddy's Coming battles. Just keep blasting him with the Necromancer spell, avoiding his claw slashes until he leaps off screen. That's it. No explosions, no groans of pain, just business as usual. With the last blow dealt, the teenager unloads the pile of bones into the fire and puts Kruger to bed for good. Or not.
That's right, you balding SOB. I can never be stopped. They thought they had me in 91, but they were wrong. Dead wrong. Just like you'll be in...
Fine! I get the point. The joke's dead. Anyway, what I meant to say was that A Nightmare on Elm Street gets a bad rap. Sure, it has a number of flaws, but they don't hinder it from being a rewarding experience. I've used this phrase to describe a number of the titles that I've reviewed, but it applies here as well. A Nightmare on Elm Street is absolutely frustrating, but also a ton of fun. Believe me, I spent 4 nights and countless attempts trying to vanquish Freddy, and the air was pretty blue from all the curses I was dropping after I died and died and died again. Anyone looking to add another challenging retro platformer to their collection need look no further than right here. It actually took me longer to beat this than Super C. No joke. The natural punch attack is laughable, the flying foes are an unrelenting annoyance, and the hero can get combo killed faster than Wally West traversing the Great Wall of China after downing a 2-liter bottle of Jolt Cola. Regardless, I love this game, and it's easily near the top of my favorite LJN releases. The Dream Warrior forms are a nice touch that stays true to the roots of the series, the controls are super tight, especially in regards to the Shadow Warrior's kick, and the soundtrack by David Wise hits all the right notes. A Nightmare on Elm Street is a very good game, and it's the perfect complement to Friday the 13th. Unfortunately, this is one of the pricier entries in the LJN catalog on the NES, but I would still recommend it for fans of the franchise and horror in general. But wait! There's more! A Nightmare on Elm Street is not only one of the best LJN releases with a great single-player mode, but it was one of the few titles in the NES library to utilize the 4-score and satellite accessories to allow up to 4-player simultaneous co-op action. This was almost unheard of at the time, especially on home consoles, where players usually had to take turns in completing an adventure. Now, I had to juggle the 4 controllers myself to get this footage, but if you have 3 other local retro gaming buddies, this must bring the experience up to a whole new level. A Nightmare on Elm Street is one of my favorite franchises, and this NES cart is worthy of bearing its likeness. 4 plastic knives out of 4. There we go, there's another Halloween video in the books. I wasn't sure if I was ever going to do another one of those, so hey, that's really cool. So, because I know that I set the bar pretty high with that Monster in My Pocket review, which, if you haven't seen that, I'll put an annotation somewhere on the screen for you to watch that, because it's really good. I'm still very proud of that one, so I dressed as the AVGN, for those of you who haven't seen it. So yeah, it's a cool video, check it out. And I hope you guys like this one too. I think this one is at least just as good as that one, maybe even better. So yeah, hooray for that. So I hope you guys like this. All of you guys who requested this, specifically Michael B. the Game Genie, he was like really wanting to see this one. So yeah, I hope you like this, Mike. Anyway, I'm going to try to keep this much shorter than the last time. It shouldn't be a problem because I don't have any questions to answer, no videos to plug, really. So the only thing really to address is the next video, which is probably going to be the 2-year anniversary video in November, near the end of November. So I don't know what that is, what series it's going to be in, what game it's going to be on, I don't know. I'm sure it's going to be something special because, hey, you got to make your anniversary videos pretty special, don't you? So, yeah. So, check that out then. So, until then, like I said, Monster in My Pocket, you know, social media, all that. I suppose I'll try putting up a little subscribe thing. If you're watching this and you haven't subscribed, you want to subscribe, you can just click that or whatever. So, you know, I've never really done that before, but there you go. Try that out. So anyway, that's all I have to really say for now. So all of you have a happy Halloween, and I'm doing the Halloween thing in my Freddy right now. So until next time, when I obviously won't be dressed as Freddy Krueger then. Bye-bye.